Alright, how's it going? In today's video, I'm covering new allegiances and the invasion of Outland from Chronicle Volume 3. So let's go! As you may have noticed from previous videos, the Blood Elves really haven't been having a fantastic time. Their kingdom, Kael'thas, was still in turmoil. Not only did they still have packs of undead roaming around, but the Amani trolls had recently decided they were going to relaunch their attacks on them as well. What with them being all weak and stuff. Regent Lord Lorthamar Theron didn't really have a lot of resources to protect his home from these threats. The army was in tatters. Obviously a number of the fighting fit were off with Kael'thas hanging about in Outland, but also, thanks to overindulgence of magic, a number of elves had transformed into withered creatures called the Wretched. They weren't exactly the obedient soldier type. Most of them spent their time trying to find their next fix of magic. Lorthamar was also a little bit concerned that Prince Kael'thas had not returned to his kingdom. As far as the Regent Lord was aware, the prince should have received his message by now about Anvina Teague and the Sunwell and all of that stuff. So why the bloody hell hadn't you come back? Also, word from Outland was pretty grim. The Legion were gathering in great numbers for God knows what reason, and a number of Blood Elves had abandoned Kael'thas. But as much as Lorthamar wanted to go and rescue the poor vulnerable prince, he couldn't just leave the kingdom undefended. The Blood Elves needed allies, and they weren't going to find them amongst humans, dwarves, gnomes or night elves. Ever since Kael'thas had sided with Illidan and Lady Vash, relations between Kael'thas and the Alliance had soured a little bit. But luckily for the Blood Elves, there was another race of peeps hanging about in the northern parts of the Eastern Kingdoms. Sylvanas Windrunner, the Banshee Queen, urged the Horde's leadership to ally with the Blood Elves, but she didn't exactly explain why. Rumours circulated that perhaps there was still some lingering part of her, a little bit of High Elf left over, that still sympathised with Kael'thas and its hardships. But there were other people that were like, nah, what a load of bollocks. She's just got some agenda or something, because she's a scheming bitch. But regardless of her motives, she arranged a meeting between War Chief Thrall, High Chief Cairn Bloodhoof, and Regent Lord Lorthamar Theron, so they could discuss the possibility of becoming super friends. Despite the slightly bitter history between these races, Lorthamar was interested. He was fully aware that this horde was totes different to the previous horde that attacked his kingdom all those years ago, plus he knew he didn't really have a lot of choices. And Thrall and Cairn liked the cut of the Blood Elves' jibs. They'd proven their courage and resolve. The War Chief believed that the Horde and the Blood Elves were probably going to need each other to survive whatever it is that's coming, so they extended the hand of peace, and Lorthamar accepted. This relationship was beneficial to both sides. The Blood Elves had gained a powerful ally, whilst the Horde had gained another strategic foothold in the Eastern Kingdoms. One of the first things Lorthamar did once they joined the Horde was inform Thrall and Cairn of the situation on Outland. There's demons, and we want to go there and save our prince. Obviously the news about demons was troubling, but like the Alliance, Thrall and Cairn weren't exactly big fans of venturing to that shattered realm. Meanwhile, Kil'jaeden was still watching as all this stuff unfolded. He hadn't anticipated that the Blood Elves would join the Horde, but he wasn't too bothered. Now both factions on Azeroth were aware of the situation on Outland. Bonus! But both sides were still kind of being pussies. The Dark Portal was closed, Outland was a distant threat, so the Demon Lord decided it was time to change that. He ordered High Lord Cruel to gather his forces at the Dark Portal on the Outland side, and he sent the same order to his forces that were actually on Azeroth. Demons that had been trapped on that world since the end of the Third War. In particular, a Doom Lord named Kazak. This Doom Lord would lead the Azeroth party, and they all headed to the Dark Portal in the Blasted Lands. Kil'jaeden then guided his followers through a ritual that would reopen the old Dark Portal, for like the 73rd time. Although it had been previously destroyed, reality had been forever warped by the portal's former presence, and blappity bloopity blah, the bridge between worlds fled to life again. Doom Lord Kazak entered the portal and immediately took control of the Outland part of the army as well. He was more seasoned than High Lord Cruel. Before Cruel could get all pissy about that, Kil'jaeden gave him a different job. He would be the spark that set Azeroth and Outland alight with war. And I imagine Cruel was like, I mean, the best fucking spark you've ever seen. So the High Lord gathered a small army and marched through the Dark Portal to Azeroth. He struck at Stormwind, he struck at Orgrimmar, he struck at a lot of places. It was the pre-patch event for the expansion. As players ran around moaning about class changes and rage quitting, and talking about how the introduction of the Group Finder interface was definitely going to make the game better in the long run, High Lord Cruel completely stirred both factions into a bloody frenzy. After a while of fighting, Cruel and his followers pretended to retreat back to the Dark Portal. It was always the plan to lure the Horde and Alliance back to Outland, but he wasn't going to make it easy for them. Demons bled their foes every step of the way. There was a quest for everyone that was basically just kill 6 demons, which sounds really straightforward, until you discover that everyone on the server had the same quest, and they all wanted to do it, at the same time. But anyway, just to push the demons back through the Dark Portal cost both the Horde and the Alliance dearly. They could no longer ignore the threat posed on Outland, not with the Dark Portal open again. Closing it wasn't going to be enough. They only had one choice: So the expansion went live, and both factions launched their armies into Outland. And for a lot of people, seeing this new realm was the single greatest moment of their life. But that moment of pure bliss was immediately interrupted, because Krul, Kazakh and the Legion army greeted them. And this time, they weren't retreating. The Alliance and Horde slowly pushed the demon army into Hellfire Peninsula, but casualties mounted on both sides. Also, Illidan and his forces kind of secretly fought at the Dark Portal as well. Illidan figured if the Alliance and Horde saw him and his fell-wielding demon hunters, they'd probably just assume they were on the Legion's side. So they kinda espionaged a bit, killed High Lord Krul, and then buggered off. Kazakh also died during this brutal battle. Krul and Kazakh had expected Kil'jaeden to send reinforcements, but the Demon Lord had never intended to do that. He didn't give a shit. They were necessary sacrifices, so that the Horde and Alliance would gain a bit of confidence. They'd establish footholds in Outland, and turn their wrath on Illidan as soon as possible. The Alliance discovered Honor Hold and its inhabitants. They were pleasantly surprised to find the Sons of Lothar, commanded by Danath Trollbane, were alive and well. The Horde had no existing fortress of their own, so they built a new one, Thrallmar, in the north of Hellfire Peninsula. Pretty soon they found some allies to join them too, the Magar. There weren't many of them, but they were fierce fighters. They were pretty pleased to see this new Horde had returned to the pride and honour of the Orcs' former society. From these new footholds, the Alliance and Horde pushed the demons all the way to the outskirts of Hellfire Peninsula. And once that was dealt with, it was time to turn their focus onto Outland's self-proclaimed lord, Illidan Stormrage. They learned pretty quickly of the Betrayer and his followers' nasty deeds, warping the land in Zangarmarsh, seizing Tempest Keep, and leeching magic from the Netherstorm. Plus there were tales of him training an army of elves, infused with demonic power. It was all just bloody outrageous. The problem is, neither the Horde nor the Alliance were aware that Illidan was just trying to destroy the Legion. He's definitely a jerk, but they were ultimately on the same side. And he was too busy to just, tell them the truth. He was nearly ready to launch his attack on Argus. Plus he really didn't think they'd understand. So he focused all his attention on being prepared. And we're leaving it there! In the next Volume 3 video, Thrall's going to meet his grandma, as well as Garrosh Hellscream. Rexxar gets a brief mention too, as he reunites with his old Mok Nathal buddies. And then guess what? Alliance champions do Coilfang Reservoir. So we're doing dungeons again. If you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, all of that bollocks. And all that's left to say is, thanks for watching, and see ya!